Welcome back to Shanna's Wire Wrap Jewelry. Today we're going to make these wire wrapped rings with 3 beads, and it has the wire wrap in the middle and then around the beads, and it's super cute, easy to do, and I'm going to walk you through it from start to finish, so follow along. The tools we need to make this wire wrapped ring are standard chain nose pliers, flush cutters, 22 gauge wire. A lot of times I use 20 gauge wire, but we're going to use 22 gauge because it's easier to bend and it's easier to learn on. We're going to use a ring mandrel. I prefer to use one that has all of the different sizes, and I prefer to use the one that has this nice groove on the back. If you don't have one, feel free to find a wooden dowel or anything that would be the size to wrap around to make a ring. You just won't be able to custom size it. And a ruler. Start by measuring 2 feet of your wire and then cut it. Take the 3 beads that you've selected and string them onto your wire. And then hold the 2 ends of your wire together with one hand and bring those beads to the middle of the wire. Straighten that out. Okay, we want to hold these in place by creating a little bend in the wire on each side. So if we bend one side straight down and out on one side, and then we'll flip it over and do the exact same thing on the other side. So pull that towards the bend that you made. You don't want any slack in between those beads, and then we'll pull that straight down and then use your tool to bend it straight out. And that should hold everything in place so those beads don't go all over the place on your mandrel. If you're wanting to make a size 7.5 ring, then you want to hold your beads at 8. And then wrap it around twice on the top there, and then let's wrap it around twice on the bottom. And that will give us 4 wraps, which is a really good size for a 22 gauge wire. Kind of cinch everything together, making sure none of your wires are overlapping. Okay, so once you have that wrapped around and you're double checking that none of your wires are overlapping in the back, and then just hold that. So again, if you're wanting to make a size 7.5 ring, then you want to hold all of the wires at the size 8. You just want it to be a 1/2 inch bigger of the ring that you are wanting to make. Okay, so then we're going to take these wires and we're going to pull them around a couple of times just to lock everything into place. And after we do that, we're going to take our wire and we're going to feed it through. So I'm going to take this left hand one and hold it around this side of the bead while I take the end and I want to take it through. And I'm not actually, you're not going to see it wrap around just yet. You're just taking it through, and then we're going to take it over again. So as I wrap this around again, I'm going to be pulling it, but I don't want to pull it so tight where it's going to be really snug against that single piece of wire that's strung, that those beads are strung onto. So if I pull, there we go. I just want it to be a nice loose little wrap so that you see it nicely between each of the beads. And then carefully do that to the other side, being careful not to pull it too hard. And that looks really good. I'm going to pull this kind of out of the way. And this other wire now, I'm going to take it around towards the front, and I'm going to take it through. And initially, this is just going around the end there, and then I'm going to take it through. Stick it on something under there. There we go. Now when you wrap this through here, you just want to try to make sure that those two wires don't overlap if possible. And you want them to be wrapped the same tightness. You don't want one smaller than the other. So just pull slowly until you get it through exactly the way you want it to look. And this one here, just side by side. And now that looks really good to me. Okay, so I'm going to bring this wire around and meet up with this one so that they're in line with each other. And then I'm just going to keep wrapping until I use up all of the slack of the wire. And I like it to be a nice wrap, not too messy. It's a personal preference though, just play with it. If you like it, then do it. You want to wrap until you have about 1.5 inches or 2 inches on each side. And we're going to use that extra slack to wrap the ends of the wire around our band. If you have a mandrel that has this nice little groove on it, push your ring up where it's snug and then it's not going to move easily on the mandrel, and then hold it and push your wire through. A lot of times I'll take my tool here to assist, and if you don't pull too tight, if you pull too tight, you're going to cinch those wires together. We want them to stay flat, so don't pull too tight. If you're using a thicker gauge wire, that won't be an issue as much, but with this 22 gauge wire, you can pull it so tight where it wants to pull all of those together. I like to wrap this about 4 times around. Again, just do what you like, but that'll give you something to start with. All right, I'm going to take it off the mandrel to do the other side, except I'm not going to use the groove this time because I want to show you what you can do if you don't have a mandrel with that groove, or if you're using a dowel. So we're wanting to make, well, we don't want it snug on our mandrel, so take it down a little bit where there's some slack in between, and then you'll be able to work that a lot easier. And so you'll be able to get your tool and put the wire in between the band and the mandrel. A little bit more slack out of that. What I said about this 22 gauge wire, it wants to bunch up. It's just a lot more flexible. As you get better at making these rings, I suggest using 20 gauge wire. This 22 gauge is thinner and it's easier to learn on. Oh, I'm having a hard time grabbing the end of that. Okay. I find it so much easier to use this because I can keep everything really tight and then it's not wanting to turn on me. I'm going to finish this out with my groove because it's going to give me a better finished product. We'll do one more wrap. Sorry if I'm not keeping that directly in the middle of the camera here. Okay. All right, we can take it off the mandrel for a moment. Okay, on these ends here that we wrapped, we don't want the wire when we trim it to extend past the band. So the way to avoid that is to kind of lift the wire just a little bit so you can trim it, kind of flush cut it so that it won't extend past the wire after we bend it down. Just kind of work it with your chain nose pliers and then feel the ends. If there's a little bit of scratchiness, then that means you need to work it down just a little bit more. And on the other side, let's do the same thing. So I get an idea of where I want it. I lift it slightly, trim, use my tools to push that down, get everything into place, and then feel the ends there. And then just place it back on your mandrel and then push it down. One thing I didn't mention was the rubber mallet. I'm going to use that for a second. So if you want a nice perfect fit, you can just use your mallet. This will make it a perfect shape. And then you can just push it down to the ring size. We made a size 8. That's probably more like 7 3/4 of an inch it looks like, but we could probably work it just a little bit more. Well, there we go. That's looking better already. All right. Now look at that. We've got this cute ring. I love it. Look how pretty, guys. You can do this too. I know you can, and I hope you do. Hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this class, and I would love to have you come back next time. Please subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.